Hello,
And welcome back to Party Chick Astrology. I'm Nina.
I'm Shaina.
And this is Aaron's birth chart reading that he purchased and so kindly allowed us to make public on our channel. He emailed us and said, that he notices that we don't have advanced readings available like we do drag me's, and we watch on our channel to get an idea of what you would be purchasing. And we do have a public advanced reading on our channel, but that's over a year old now. So it was very nice of him to reach out, and now we can update kind of what you're getting. Yeah. As you can see, first and foremost, the quality is different because we have a new system for doing readings in which we do live stream them instead of needing to use the camera, which is much better because the computer doesn't cut out like the camera does. So if you were to receive a reading, you would be receiving it like this, and you can receive it in an unlisted link, or you can have the option to schedule it with us, and we would send you the link prior so that you can
click on it and join us and chat with us in the live chat.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to make the old advanced reading private because it's kind of irrelevant. It was a year ago. Things are different. You know what I mean? You get a lot of knowledge, blah, blah, blah. So if you're looking for it, whatever it is, I'm probably going to private it now.
Yeah. But what is interesting about this reading versus the other one is that the other one, he asked quite a few questions, and we spent the entirety of the reading answering his questions, which is typically what we do. But Aaron didn't ask any questions. He just asked for our opinion overview of his chart.
Yeah, just like an analysis overall. Mostly we do get questions for readings, but it doesn't matter which way. It's just whether you want us to guide us and focus on something or not. So this is a pretty free range. But okay, so we're gonna start. Now we're gonna not talk to you guys, and we're only gonna talk to Adam from now on because
Adam was the other guy.
Oh my god, I was gonna say, I was like, why don't I have his name in my head? Because I was laughing earlier. I was like, Adam Aaron. So we're only gonna talk to Aaron now because that's rude if we talk to you. So fuck all of y'all. Hi, Aaron. Welcome to your birth chart reading. We're going to start it at 2:30.
Yes. So you didn't ask any questions, but you wanted just an in-depth analysis of your chart. And kind of what I got the vibe looking at your chart, and we're going to get into mostly your personal planets, sign, and house, as well as the most important aspects to each planet as much as we have time for. But the kind of synopsis that I really got was: powerful man is deeply troubled and doesn't want you to see, but kind of wishes you knew.
Yeah, that's actually pretty accurate. Definitely wants you to see and wishes you knew, but will never be understood.
Yeah.
More like, we'll be like, I'll never. Anyways.
But yeah, the first indication of all of this is your sun in Scorpio in the first house.
Oh, yeah.
So a Scorpio sun or any Scorpio placement in the first house is inherently a bit more of a vulnerable planet than most planets in different signs in the first house.
Because Scorpio does not want to be on display.
Yeah.
Scorpio is really not comfortable being in the first house or having any energy there. It's just too vulnerable. It's too exposed. And Scorpio wants to keep their things hidden because it's private. It's like, this is mine. My 8th house is like,
yeah.
You know.
So since the Scorpio archetype is all about the hidden things and the opposite sign to Taurus, Scorpio has a lot to do with insecurity and really every facet of the word insecurity, because, Taurus is valuable security, monetary security, and the second house also rules, and Taurus rules this kind of, not sense of self, because that's the sun, but a sense of worth. And having Scorpio be the opposite sign to that, there's just a lot of insecurity in, again, every facet of the word. So the prominent Scorpio qualities that come out when it's on display in the first house are really the part of Scorpio that has a drive for power. And a strong sense of that kind of Scorpio rising mystique and magnetism. And that's what you're displaying more than anything in the first house, is this powerful image and this mysterious and intriguing magnetic image, while at the same time that may be covering up a lot of the insecurity and wounds really that you have going on just from inherently being a Scorpio sun, not to mention more things that we'll get into.
And even more than most Scorpios, if you've like Scorpio energy in the first house, Scorpio rising, it's really about getting respect from the people around you. A Scorpio rising will not, and especially Scorpio sun in the first house, will not be quiet to somebody disrespecting him. Well, them, but you're him. And so this is somebody who's really going to especially speak up when you're being disrespected and not be afraid to let other people aware that that's not how you talk to them, you know, in a but not in a loud, like Aries explosion way, but in like that quiet, controlled, it's almost very intimidating way.
Yeah. And another thing about just having Scorpio in the ruling your chart, having Pluto ruling your chart, having Scorpio ruling your first house, and then having your Scorpio sun in the first house, is that this first house position is also more likely to become a bit more obsessed with how other people view them, just because wherever Scorpio is ruling is going to be a house that the person is going to be innately a little bit more obsessed with, especially because as you don't have an interception, you do have Leo ruling your midheaven, and that definitely backs that up.
There's an obsessive way of how people take you and how people see you from afar, and it's a big like you're cultivating it, and it's almost like it's something that I find Scorpio rising spend their free time doing, is whatever they do is to support the image that they're trying to create. And it's a lot more of an outer based idea than most people being like, what am I trying to do to show people? It's like, how do I want people to take me? And then how do I appear that way? You know, it's kind of like the opposite almost.
Yeah. And this also can literally be an obsession with your physical appearance.
Oh yeah.
Scorpio risings, and especially with your sun in there, have more of a tendency to really fall into a kind of look, a kind of personal style that is really distinguished and usually emphasizes the power that you're trying to put across to the rest of the world, whether it is this kind of dark mystique power or whether it is a more traditional kind of powerful power, you know?
I think that this is a combination that kind of can speak to eating issues, because Scorpio already has kind of a natural binging and purging ideology in life, and that can also go to food. And I think that that's also supported by your 7th house in Taurus, seeing everybody as like lazy pigs, being very aware of your image, how you come across. And so this can be an obsession of how you look, your body, your physique. And you have Capricorn energy. You have your Mars and Venus in Capricorn as well, which has to look perfect. So I feel like there's a definite obsessive just everything. The way you present yourself is in the way that people take you and in the way that you appear physically.
And the way that you remedy your insecurity and this kind of preoccupation that you have with how you come across and how other people view you is through finding ways to control. And that can definitely come about with eating issues. It can come about with restriction or heavily routine types of eating.
6th house Saturn you also have, and that just emphasizes that even more.
And whether it is food or not, it probably just you find a need to seek and grasp control wherever you can, and you know better than we do what area of your life exactly you seek to have control over to compensate for this kind of insecurity that you have with your sense of self, really, because that is your sun. And you also not just power for the sake of you having power, but also power for the sake of being a powerful person in the court of public opinion, because the court of public opinion is very important to you.
It gives you respect and authority, and being able to be well taken in like the court of authority gives you power, because then people are going to be more likely to listen to you.
Yeah. And you probably seesaw between a sense of confidence that you have in yourself and a sense of insecurity, because at your core, you know that you're truly a very strong and powerful person, as any Scorpio knows.
You have a lot of potential in you.
Yeah. And that's why Scorpios are always, so proud to say that they're Scorpios, because there is a recognition that that is a very powerful sign.
Yeah.
So at your core, you do have this understanding that you are a very strong and powerful person, but at the same time, there's so much of your sense of self that hinges on the court of public opinion, that hinges on how other people see you. But then again, you have this drive to remain somewhat hidden and unseen. So that really can create a seesaw effect of confidence for you and how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, it's that duality of having an extremely covered introverted rising, but yet an extremely extroverted midheaven, of really wanting to be seen on a public platform and being acknowledged, and especially with like Venus and Mars and Capricorn, needing that to feel good, but also being very intimidated of just the actual act of interacting with people one-on-one is very exhausting and can be intimidating because it's so vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else to say about sun placement?
No, you do have Chiron in your first house as well in Scorpio, so that definitely does add to the wounding and just that being on display. And you really do people like wear your heart on your sleeve. You like wear your scars on your sleeve, and people will see that. And it's a very intense energy. People will come to you for counseling, even more than most Scorpios. People are going to come to you for their counseling needs, and that's going to be very, very draining of you. And it can feel like you were somehow, I feel like your father, probably because Sun in the first house, gave you that Chiron in the first house, some wounding around the way that you appear, like you'll never be good enough for him or something like that. And so you're constantly helping out people with all their daddy issues and all this stuff, but yet, you're still having a terrible relationship with your father or yourself, and that's Chiron in the first house.
Yeah, and that definitely emphasizes the negatives that can come with Sun in first house, because to have such a prominent energy in the same house as your Chiron, your wounded healer, it shows like a big sense of a wound on you. Now, to get into something a bit more positive, your most prominent Sun aspect is Sun sextile Neptune. So there is already a huge part of Scorpio that is into the occult, the hidden, the unseen, and is willing to dive into the unknown, and is willing to have a certain amount of faith that there is something beyond this physical realm. But with your Sun also sextiling Neptune, it enhances more of this blind faith. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It just enhances more of this peaceful faith than this Scorpio sense of feeling like there
nothing
has to,
will ever
like
be okay.
I know that there's something more out there. I know that there's more to life. And even like this preoccupation with death and what happens after death, and this preoccupation with what exists beyond this physical realm. But it gives you a bit more of a sense of peace, a bit more of a sense of faith, and a bit more of a softness to your character, and an empathy and sensitivity to your character, which is good, because there is a lot in your chart that is trying to make you not sensitive, that is trying to make you held together, and all that.
And this, I think, because Scorpio is a fixed sign, and so giving it a little bit of Neptune can help and ease, and you're able to be a little bit more mutable, a little bit more not so fixed on what you believe, and this is what I'm stuck on. I can't get out of that. But there's much, like Mina said, that blind faith I think helps you out, because it's just it's adding a dreaminess and a hope to Scorpio, Neptune will be like, you know what, maybe there is something out there. I can envision better things. Like I may be stuck in this scenario right now and it's not good, but I can envision a time when it's better. I can dream, I can hope, and I can wish for these things, and they can come true. This is somebody that you're very good at manifesting things to a fault, possibly to the point where you might manifest bad things emotionally because you're just saying, Scorpio will repeat the same things in their head and go over and over and over this and paranoia, and then you'll manifest those things in front of you. But you can also manifest very good things for yourself because it's sextile. So this is not a Scorpio that's delusional, that is like, oh, you're just so watery and emotional, and it's just like, what world do you live in? No, you're just dreamy, but you're still able, because it's in Capricorn. Yes, Neptune's in Capricorn, so you're still able to stay grounded and not lose yourself. Sun sextile Neptune is really like a fantastic aspect. Yeah. Trine can be a little bit too heavy, and sextile, just like they work together, but you're never going to lose your footing on reality.
Yeah, it's much more gentler.
Yeah, it's much gentler. You also just have an extreme creativity to you, and a really good like ability towards music and the arts and that kind of stuff. And Scorpios can already get so deep, and really you can use those things, you can access those deep hidden things with you to make art and to make beautiful things and really convey them on a page and however you want to, or performance, or whatever it is that you might do. It just creates a very artistic person.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense as this aspect tying you towards astrology and a higher faith, and definitely has an indication of you having very great intuitive gifts as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just you probably grew up around a religious area because it is in the third house, but it probably didn't affect you too negatively. Well, you do have some negative aspects to Neptune, but it didn't affect your ego. You probably will always, whether you agree or disagree with the religion or the space in which you were brought up in, you will always appreciate the spirituality it gave you.
Yeah, you definitely know how to take away the positive things, the positive things from any religious experience that you might have had growing up.
Yes.
Now, another really important aspect going on with your sun is Sun sextile Lilith, at least your mean Lilith. And Lilith is a very dark energy typically, but again, it's a sextile. So it is a gentler and more peaceful aspect going on. So when your sun or any personal planet is making a gentler aspect to Lilith, it speaks more of just this kind of natural acceptance and understanding of the darker parts of human nature, not only in yourself, but also as a way to understand other people and kind of cultivating this interest. And of course, it can be our obsession because it's Lilith, but it is still sextile, so it's not necessarily going to veer on obsession, but it can veer on an obsession or just an over preoccupation of other people's dark side and the dark side of human nature and the darker, more compulsive sides of yourself.
Yeah. Well, I will say, just in general, a trine versus a sextile. The trine is so flowing, you're almost not aware of it, and that can lead to some problems. But the sextile, there's much more of an awareness. You're like, oh, I can put these two strings together and work with them right now. Or, oh, I don't really have to, kind of situation. Whereas like a trine, you're like, I can't help but do it. And Sun sextile Lilith is obsession. It's what you can't help but do, that itch you can't help but scratch. So when it's sextiling your sun, that means that what your obsession is what you are obsessed with. Like it really does work with you. It's not like I compulsively do this, even though what I want in life is this. It doesn't help me. This thing that I compulsively do is not what I want and not where I want to go. But with you, it's very much on track. So it feels productive to do your Lilith almost, if that makes sense. Like when you act upon it, you're like, this is fulfilling. It's good. It's not just some obsessive itch. It's taking me farther to where I want to be.
Yeah, productive almost to the point that it can, just because you have this Scorpio energy, and
Yeah.
it is conjunct in your Lilith.
For sure.
It can lend itself to a little bit of manipulation,
Yes.
based on how much you know and how interested you are in human behavior, and particularly the dark and compulsive side of human behavior. So I almost think of this as lending itself towards behavior economics, because
Oh, yeah.
that's
And it's in his 11th house? Would that be where it's okay. Well, I have the other one though too.
I'm trying to think.
Oh, see, I didn't. Yeah, I'm gonna have to re-put it in. Hold on.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But yeah, I'm just thinking like behavior economics is something that in itself is very manipulative, and manipulative because you're using other people's psychology and other people's compulsive tendencies to for your own gain, for particularly your own financial gain. And there is this kind of sense of power over being able to use someone's weaknesses almost for your gain. But it's also like not the worst thing in the world. You're not going to hell if you're a behavioral economist, an economist that studies behavioral economics. Question mark?
I don't know.
Did you find what you're looking for?
No, but it's okay. What are we moving on to?
So then you have your moon in Gemini in the 8th house. So this, again, leads itself hugely into psychoanalyzing. It already makes sense that Scorpio risings have Gemini, or unintersected have Gemini in the 8th house, because when Pluto is your chart ruler, and Scorpio is the first thing that you experience as you're born into this world, it only makes sense that having an understanding of what is dark and what is painful in this world early on in life, once you reach that point in your development that you're confronted with that kind of pain and existentialism again, you approach it from a more intellectual and curious side of your mind. And then having your moon just reemphasizes your comfort and how really steeped in Scorpionic 8th house Plutonic themes in your life you are.
Yeah, this combination, this obviously points to somebody that like a loss of a childhood, but also a morbid curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Like Scorpio risings, especially with your Gemini moon being in there in the 8th house, you can't help but look up all the things that you shouldn't. You know what I mean? You can't help but like, ooh, like let's poke it. You know what I mean? It's like, let's poke it syndrome. But Gemini moon in the 8th house is a heavy emotional placement because Gemini moon has so many emotions. They're constantly flipping and flopping. And as a Scorpio, that's a very unstable moon placement to have with you. So you're already feeling all these things. You're already very sensitive. So when you have this Gemini moon, it makes it like an erratic sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably extremely aware and feel very much your surroundings, and they will impact your emotions a lot. And so also Gemini moons always are busy. They're always constantly having to do a bunch of things. And a lot of times I find, for whatever reason, or maybe just the Gemini moons I know, doing things for other people that they don't really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true, but at least two that I know that I both have Scorpio risings and have Gemini moons would always be doing things for other people that they did not want to do ever. And having it in the 8th house, it's like, you know how much your emotions change. You know how erratic they are. You know how crazy people tell you are. Like people, you're always going to be like, you're crazy. Like you're pinned as this crazy psycho person because your emotions are so erratic. And to other people, that's like, how do you feel so much? So that's why you're steeping it down, is because you don't want people to call you crazy. You don't want people to see how emotional you are and how many challenges and hurdles that you have to deal with because of this. And also just because of how sensitive you are and how, and you know, having your moon in the 8th house, it's like you have this instant connection to these dark things. And a lot of people with this placement have just like natural, like supernatural little like, what's like feelers or something. And that's considered crazy too. And so, you know, it's just really stuffing it down and pretending it's not there. But in reality, it's always like.
A big thing that I a way that I see this could be manifesting in your chart, especially as a male, is that, I mean, eighth house moons inherently feel a lot and feel very intensely.
Yes.
Gemini moons always get the rep of needing to be constantly mentally stimulated and do a billion things at once. And a lot of times that comes from this, since it's related to your moon, it comes from this lady energy is out of a need to not ignore, but distract yourself from exactly what you're feeling. And your moon is what's going on in your internal mind. And sometimes you feel that you need, in order to match what's going on in your internal mind, you need to be doing a billion things at once, just so that the chatter that's going on in here and the chaos that's going on in here is going on in here too, and you out here too. And you can distract all of this chaos and chatter and emotional stuff with what's going on out here too. And you can find that once you feel yourself feeling a strong emotional reaction, as you likely do with your moon in the eighth house, you find the need to multitask, to do something else, to pick up a screen and see something else, to just put yourself out of this mind state and distract yourself and stimulate yourself with something else. The way, whatever your moon is doing, whatever moon situation you've got going on in your chart is an indication of how you deal with an emotional situation. Maybe even how your parents dealt with you crying, and maybe your parents decided, oh, he's crying, we got to distract him. And suddenly that becomes your emotional response to anything as you grow up. As soon as you start feeling something, you think, how can I distract myself?
Right, how can I forget, how to put this out of my mind? Also, dang it, I just lost it. I was looking at, no, that's my fault. Oh, Gemini moon in the eighth house. So Gemini moon likes gossip, likes all like the petty stuff, but then moon in the eighth house holds on to things. So this is somebody who holds on to the smallest of things and really, unfortunately, lets it affect them very easily. Now you're obviously bouncing from one thing to another, so maybe you won't dwell on that one thing for a while, but it will be in your brain, and then a year later it'll still be in your brain. You'll be like, why am I still thinking about this, and why am I still harboring these feelings, because you haven't dealt with them in the first place, from this experience that happened a year ago, when Shelly was like, why do you even care anymore? Like, this was not even a big deal to begin with. And you're like, well, I can't let go of it. And it keeps on kind of entering and leaving, and I'm not going to emotionally deal with it, because air moons don't really like to sit in their emotions, but yet, and then, eighth house is, there's going to be a dismissal to be able to cope with it, of being like pushing it down. And so those things will always fester up, and you're going to constantly feeling like you're petty, like you can't get over things, like you hold grudges all the time. And that's just because it's very hard for you to
actually truly distract
in the long term. Not only distract in the long term, but like allow yourself to fully experience that hurt and then release it and forgive.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because you don't want to let yourself fully experience it. You don't, and if you do, you'll wind up lashing out in petty ways, doing petty things to get back at people, or manipulating scenarios, or manipulating people, and you just can be messy. You can be a drunk, messy bitch.
And something that we mentioned also in our eighth house planetary placement videos with moon in the eighth house is that because the moon is the fastest changing planet or luminary, there can be a sense of repeating patterns of fast turnover and dealing with the same situations karmically, especially with the moon in Gemini, because if you aren't taking the time to acknowledge what the hell is going on and absorb and release and forgive and learn from the experiences that are causing you this pain and turmoil, the eighth house is a very karmic house. It's going to want to bring those back for you so that you have another chance to do that. And If you're constantly being confronted with these things and not taking a chance to really observe what the hell is going on and do the work to let that go, it is going to keep coming back and be like, hey, you didn't figure this out before, so let's give you the situation again.
The same things over and over again.
And this is actually a really a known thing in psychology, and typically it's presented to you as your relationship with your parents. They say that you always want to recreate your relationship with your most problematic parent in your romantic relationships, because subconsciously and psychologically you're looking for a chance to redo and make that relationship right in the second chance. So they say that, we date from our complexes more than anything. And I don't know if that's like a really good thing, a really good piece of information to hold on to, because it is a little depressing. But it just speaks to this thing of, and it doesn't necessarily happen in dating for you, although the 8th house does have to do with, the merging of two people. But it just speaks to this thing of situations repeating themselves for the sake of you dealing with them karmically. And that happens to a certain extent with everyone, but especially with someone that has this kind of 8th house energy and such a flighty sign of the planet that's in your 8th house, if that makes sense. That wasn't very well grammatically structured, but I think you get the
You've got 2 major oppositions. You've got your moon opposite your Mercury. Oh, I'm not done. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Because I did want to mention that there is another juxtaposition with your Gemini moon in the 8th house, because typically 8th house moons take sex very seriously, and that may still be the case with you even with the Gemini moon in the 8th house. But and one way or another, whether your actions match this or not, you have a great capacity for loyalty and take sex and intimate relationships very seriously. But in the case that you do feel the need to be constantly stimulated and run away from what is serious to you and what is emotional to you, you may end up finding that you're a pretty promiscuous person in order, I hate myself for writing this, in order to fill that hole, no pun intended.
I think this shows very obviously because your moon is in conjunct your Mars. Your Mars is in Capricorn in the 3rd house, and it's conjunct your Venus, and that's going to be, I want to fuck this person right now, I'm going to fuck this person right now kind of situation. You're not going to, that combination in the 3rd house with the Capricorn energy, with the conjunction, it's like you feel so strongly, you want, you need, you conquer, right? And you're not thinking, so Capricorn can kind of be that selfish thing of just wanting to get to the top, and in your head, like wanting to get this sexual partner or whatever. So I think your Mars is much, it's not that it's promiscuous, it's just action oriented. Whereas your moon wants to hold back, it wants to not let anybody in until, you feel like you've really entered that 8th house bonding thing. So you're constantly going against both of them, going against one of them no matter what you do. These things just can't seem to not even be opposite to where they're lining up in this sense of cardinal or fixed, but literally just nothing in common and in conjunct, to where it's really hard to get them to really do anything. I think it's really hard for you to do anything because the moon is what you need, and then your Mars is how you get it. And when these two aren't lined up, it's like, I think it might create a very, unfortunately, not a complacent person. You're not complacent, but you might wind up being kind of stagnant because you don't know where to go either way. And this, like Nina said, can also create a more promiscuous person, but then developing a lot of self-hatred because you're a promiscuous person, because that's not fulfilling to your moon, but yet it's fulfilling to your Mars.
Yeah. And people who have 8th house things can sometimes correlate their value to what their value means in a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have this kind of mentality that is very prevalent in this country, that your value goes down the more partners that you're with, and that you have taken away from your value from the one person that you feel like you're meant to be with by being with other people, that can hugely affect your sense of your own value.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's go on to your moon oppositions. The first one is moon opposite Mercury. And this is interesting for you, having your moon in a mercurial sign. And it probably likely enhances the pitfalls that Gemini moons have.
And it can just feel like you probably feel like your moon should be in Sagittarius and your Mercury should be in Gemini. And there's this constant, and not only is it the opposition within yourself, but there's also this added on fight of like, these things should also be switched. Not only are they opposite within me, but they also just don't make sense in society and how they're displaying themselves. And this can make for like a clunky feeling is the best way I can describe it.
But in essence, this opposition says that your head and heart are not on the same page.
Yes.
And there's just a conflict between how you communicate and how you formulate your thoughts, which is Mercury. It's just not in line with your inner life and your soul needs, which is your moon. So when you communicate, it's hard for it to come from the heart, and you end up either being a bit cold and overly intellectual, or you just come across as a bit insincere, or both.
Your mom probably lied to you a lot. You probably were just lied to a lot by your parents in general. And the way that your mom lied to you was probably over-promising. And she would say she would do all these grand things. It could even be something as big as like, we're going to move to a different country, and they had you on this for so long, and then you found out that they never were really sure of it, or this whole big thing, like something like that. Like your parents, they just would over promise and over talk and oversell themselves, even to where you don't know how to honestly speak about yourself, speak from the heart, tell people what is true. And then this can create, I found that people with moon opposite Mercury or moon square Mercury, other people will be like, they were just easy to lie to. Mm-hmm. Like they will other people get that vibe that like, oh, this person is insincere. They're easy to lie to because they're lying all the time. So I'm going to lie to them all the time. And they don't know what to believe because they're one is saying one and one is saying the other. They don't know to believe me or not. They're easy to lie to. So you just might feel like you are being lied to all the time, so you're gonna let you know what I mean? It's that like, they're both doing it because the other, and it's also you talk a big talk, and you want to seem like you know all these things, and whether you do or don't, you need to make it seem as though you know all this information about these things. But in reality, you're kind of a flip-flopper with your ideas. You're not as strongly held on this one thing as you're saying. Like this could be a placement. I'm not saying that you are, but this could be a placement of like being vegan, but then in reality, on the low, not, kind of situation. Because it's that Sagittarius Mercury, you're saying like, I'm fighting for this, I'm fighting for this, I'm fighting for this. When Gemini Moon, you're like in the day-to-day, you're like, I can't do this day-to-day.
Yeah. And then in addition to how you might be coming across speaking, because your moon is not connecting to your Mercury, your emotions can also react quite volatilely because they're not necessarily going through this vetting process of your Mercury telling you whether what you're feeling and how you're expressing it is necessarily logical. So there's just this difficulty of blending the head and the heart, and it can really prove to be difficult when making decisions. Because it can really feel like you're picking between two roads, your head or your heart. And picking from your head is, picking what looks reasonable and logical. And your Mercury, again, is Sagittarius. It's big picture. And so what seems logical to you is what will work out in the grand scheme of things. And then it's in the second house. So also, what is going to be practical and stable to you. So that's your logical side. What is going to work in the grand scheme of things and be practical and stable in the long run. But then your moon operates totally instinctually and based on passion, because it's in the 8th house, as well as it being in Gemini, it's really focusing on the here and now and the right in front of you. So that really sets up what do I do? What is logical, which is, what is going to be great in the grand scheme of things, or what my mind
What
thinks
makes
is going to be
sense,
great.
A, B, C, D, E.
What makes sense, or versus what I feel in the here and now, what I feel like I need to do. And really, it seems like you're stuck in between two roads, but there's, in astrology, it's just a basic fact that you can't argue with your moon.
Yeah.
So basically, the more you understand that and stop trying to argue with your moon, the better off you'll be. Just having, and also awareness is always the key to any of these things that don't make sense in someone's chart. Yeah.
Moon opposite Pluto, did you write about that?
No, I didn't, because I wanted to talk more about Venus, but I think we have time.
The only thing, I just want to say one quick thing about Moon opposite Pluto, because we talked about so much Plutonic things, is that, it's the same themes, but unfortunately when you have the ruler, like the Pluto rules the 8th house, and your moon is in the 8th house, and it's making a bad contact to Pluto, it's probably not in the 8th house because of the good reasons of the 8th house. It's probably in the 8th house because, unfortunately, of the more negative reasons. And your mom probably was a very, 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 very controlling figure in your life. And so you are very, 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 very controlling of yourself. And I think that she probably didn't show her emotions much. She probably hid them a lot. She didn't talk about them a lot, but they were obvious and they were there. And she did these weird manipulative things to get you to know about them, but she would never admit to them. So now you don't know how else to deal with them, except for kind of like shuffling around and trying to get what you want through this like roundabout way.
Yeah. Mercury opposite Pluto typically speaks to someone who has an easier. Moon opposite Pluto. Sorry. I thought we were talking about Mercury. So
No,
never mind.
Mercury is conjunct Pluto.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Let's move on to Venus.
Yeah, I'm done. Let's move on to Venus. I just want to say
that. So your Venus is in Capricorn in the 3rd house. So this again reemphasizes
more daddy issues. What a bunch of daddy and mommy.
Yeah. You're the type of person who takes love and relationships very seriously, as your moon already shows in the 8th house. But it being in Capricorn, it might be veering so far into serious town that
I like that a lot.
that you're really restricting yourself from dating or getting into relationships at all. This is already a big theme in Capricorn Venus.
Yeah.
But just your entire, like, what was the synopsis that I gave? Your entire powerful man must still remain powerful and doesn't want you to know, but secretly does.
Yes.
So that is a big inhibitor into getting into close interpersonal and romantic relationships. So, so much of your chart is already speaking to these patterns of needing power in order to overshadow your inner vulnerability. That it probably means that your Capricorn Venus is veering on the side of restriction and keeping yourself from being in love. And also, Capricorn's value of power and social status is inhibiting you from opening up to the vulnerability of partnering up with someone, because you're really holding the sense of needing power. And then with Capricorn Venus, again, needing social status, and then Leo in the 10th house, that is your overshadowing need that can really cast a shadow on the need for close interpersonal vulnerable relationships.
Yes. Now your Venus in Capricorn, its ruler is Saturn and it's squaring your Saturn. So that means that, like, I just mentioned, not a very happy Venus in Capricorn. And what Venus square Saturn in Capricorn can really feel like is, it's like if you have like a vial and it feels like a partnership requires all of this vial to be full, but yet your vial is this big. Mm-hmm. So it can feel like you don't have as much love to give, like you don't have, and a lot of it, I think, because yours is in the 3rd and the 6th house, and because of all the other things speaking to me, I think it's, you're like, I don't have time. I have to put a lot of time towards my job, towards myself, towards these 6th house Scorpio, Capricorn things. I don't have, or my emotions, I don't have time to love a bunch of people. I don't have time for all these relationships. I have a certain, it does feel like you have a certain capacity, and it can feel like if you give some of it away, then you're taking love from this other person. And it's like, well, do I want to get started and involved even just a friendship with this person? Because then I'm going to take some away from this person. And what the Venus square Saturn Venus in Capricorn has to realize, that that love doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? Like, giving love to one person does not mean you now have to give less love or devalues the love that you give to the other person. And I think that, again, this emphasizes your moon in the 8th house of being like wanting that one partner, because you feel like, you know, if you give your love too much, you're used and you don't have enough for the person anymore. And I think this emphasizes that, like, Venus square Sun, and I won't have enough love to give. And it is this thing of, you see, it almost can be like, well, this person is foolish for giving all their love everywhere, and it makes it not worth it. And I need, you know, in order for love to be true, it needs to feel like, almost like, you know, like they wouldn't just give it to anybody, or you wouldn't just give it to anybody. But in reality, you're just holding good feelings hostage. You're just holding good experiences and love and all these things hostage, and then you're wondering why am I not experiencing all these things? Why are people not giving me all these things? Why am I not getting the love X, Y, or Z gets? And it's because you're not giving that love either, because you're holding it tight, and you're like, I'm holding it. People don't really deserve it.
Yeah. Love has big shoes in your chart to fill.
Yeah.
And also, you can easily feel like you are being taken advantage of.
Yes.
And you really want to hold on to your power. Then your Venus is not in the most romantic house. Your Venus is in the 3rd house, which really, more than anything, emphasizes your need to be well liked by other people.
Yes. In a community, be accepted in a group. You really, unfortunately, Scorpio and Capricorn can already get on that thing of putting other people's view of them in front of theirs, and your chart really emphasizes that unfortunate thing of equating success and power to the success and power other people give you and not what you give you.
Yeah. Now, big benefits that it does give you, especially for your goal in life, being well liked, is that Venus in the 3rd house, it does make you very charming and tactful and expressive when talking to people, and genuinely likable, maybe even without trying, but likely with a little bit of trying.
To me, with it being in Capricorn, it's like business.
Yeah.
You're good at going on, maybe not friends, you're not going to, you know, the typical Venus meeting your relationships, but you meet people of business, people of status. You're surrounded by that growing up, you know?
And it's very important for you to be well liked, especially because behind this human with social graces that you are is a very complex and deep and truly wounded person. So that is where you're kind of hinging your I'm okay though because I am well liked, because I have power. And so it doesn't make for a very romantic Venus. And Venus in the 3rd house does have a bit of a mischievous side, which we have ascertained from the rest of your chart that you may have.
Just a bit.
Yeah, because it again adds to the interest that you have of other people and their behavior, and you might have a little fun using what you know about them to your advantage, even if you're just using what you know about them to kiss their ass in a very specific way that you know will work to your advantage, you know? Or you can be a little saucy and manipulative.
Yeah, or even know how to sell yourself.
Yeah.
Know how to speak yourself, talk yourself up. And I think that goes back to that moon opposite Mercury being like Venus, and how that Venus in Capricorn in the 3rd house talks to really being able to sell yourself and talk and chit chat and stuff. And in reality, like, you're like, okay, a perfect example of like you're talking about this product you have, whatever it is that you're trying to sell, we'll call it a product. And you're like, I have this product. But reality, when you go home, the only product you have is the idea and your ability to sell it. You don't have any physical thing in your hand.
Or truly you have less confidence in your in yourself than you portray.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I mean. Like, your product would be your confidence. You know what I mean? In reality, you come home and you don't have the confidence that you say you have. You don't have that product.
Yes. Is that all you have to say about Venus placement? Okay. Venus conjunct Mars. Again, here's an extra dash of love is a little extra intense for you.
You go and get it. You go and get love. You don't let love. You don't sit back and wait for love to come to you. You go out and get what you want. You go out and get what you need. Don't be a lazy bitch sitting on your ass.
But you don't necessarily have the most romantic Venus placement. This conjunction makes your Venus definitely very passionate, makes you a very passionate person, passionate lover, and a strong temperament in love. that shows up in relationships. And as in any typical Scorpio fashion, it's hard for you to distinguish all-consuming love with just sex. Which, if you are in a bit more of a promiscuous person, you might have a hard time even knowing what love is, as you've experienced sex and that is something so intense for you, and you have this idea that love is on an even higher pedestal than what you have experienced in sex. When truthfully, you might not know that what you're experiencing in sex is a lot of love. And you might feel that there must be a step beyond that. And I mean, there is, like, forming an actual relationship with someone versus the kind of feelings that you have when you have sex with them, no matter how conjunct your Venus and your Mars are very different. But this just might emphasize love being something that has very big shoes to fill. And you feel like...
especially the being in Capricorn.
Yeah.
The expectations are soaring high. You expect the perfect person, and you will accept nothing less, and you expect you to be the perfect person in love.
Yeah. On the other hand, you might also be very aware of how much love is involved in sex with you, and it may become difficult for you to handle it if your partners are not on the same page as you. And likely, especially if you're not communicating with your partners on whether they're on the same page as you, you likely assume that they're not. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that you probably don't communicate very much, and you with whether you're on the same page with your partner, if it is quite casual, especially because this leads us into Venus square Saturn.
I was also just gonna say, with the common issue, really quick, with the Venus conjunct Mars, this also makes for a very excitable person and personality. Like, you can kind of be like, ooh, new thing. This ignites such a strong desire and lust and want and love in me, and that is why your Mars is in conjunct your Moon, because it's this new and excitable thing. You can't help but go after it, but yet your Moon is like, no, keep it safe, don't go after anybody. But your Mars is like, I can't help it. Yeah, yes. Leads us into Mars Venus square Saturn,
also known as toxic masculinity.
Yeah. This is just a quick side note. I've noticed that people with Saturn in the 6th house, even if it's well aspected, even if it's not retrograde, even if it's not or something, even if it's fine, they have a terrible relationship with their father because their father's horribly controlling. So if with a horribly controlling father and squaring Venus, they were very particular about how much love they gave you and when they gave it to you.
And that obviously informs the way that you express and understand love.
Oh, you're from Beverly Hills. I was going to say, I feel like you're born to wealth. Right, like you're born, like your parents were super high status
and just busy
bees, and you were around all these people with high status, and they expected you to conduct yourself so professionally, so perfectly.
Oh my god, yes, of course.
Because I was like, with that third house stuff, I was like, he must have been grown up around important people.
Yeah.
And it's just typical father, business father, that didn't give you love, and you're like, I'm rich, but I don't have love.
Yeah, and then your idea of love is this Capricornian,
just
we serve each other in status.
I am the dad, I provide.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Anyway, Venus square Saturn typically gives you a very pessimistic outlook on love, and possibly just you either never had the experience of knowing how to express it based on your parents, and you probably have this narrative that it's somewhat weak or foolish to express love because, again, you have this very pessimistic attitude.
Or even that it's, what's the word, like, not real because it's so mushy. Mm-hmm. If you get all these mushy and flowery, what do they mean? Mm-hmm. What are the actions behind them? Don't give me all these mushy, cutesy things. It can be cold like that.
Yeah.
Venus
square Saturn people also typically set themselves up for disappointment because, again, pessimistic attitude in love.
Manifesting disappointment.
Yeah, and so you are feeding your doubts of anything that shows up. You're feeding how it can go wrong or how it's not right or just how stupid it is.
Or how this person can't possibly like you.
Yeah.
And especially like you for who you are. There's no way that could ever happen. You have to change yourself and fix yourself and be this perfect person for somebody to like you.
So generally there's this attitude or this narrative of it's better to not try at all.
Yeah.
Especially because Saturn and Venus in Capricorn is very much like fear of failure.
Yeah.
So better to not try at all than to try and fail.
Also, there's this fear of being too pushy or making some, like, I'm always, because I've been I'm always scared. I'm like, what if this person doesn't actually like them as much as they think they do or they're saying, and I'm going to make them uncomfortable by doing something, you know, that they actually don't want because they're not speaking up. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So you're going to be, when in reality, everybody's like, they're screaming at you that they like you, but there's always going to be that piece of like, but what if they don't actually, and I do something and I act upon it, and then it's like non-consensual, you know?
Even a little bit of Neptune sextile Sun,
right?
Can be telling you, what if I'm delusional?
What if I'm delusional?
What if I just don't
what
know?
if I don't know?
Yeah, trust is also very hard for people with Venus square Saturn, and you're likely really sensitive about betrayal or anything that could indicate possible betrayal in the future.
And you Scorpio husbands.
There you go.
And so you've probably gone through a lot of quick, small relationships. You know, like things are never at the right time, never at the right place, and you know they're short. And so whenever you start something, you expect it to leave very soon after.
Mm-hmm. What sucks for you though is that you still really need love.
Yeah.
Even though your Venus square Saturn is like, no, you don't.
No, but if anything, it makes you need it more because Saturn is like, it puts this big weight on making everything perfect that it touches, you know?
Yeah.
So you're like, this is my Saturn problem. I need to conquer it and make it perfect.
Yeah, but really the answer to all of this is time and awareness, and the effort to heal your wounds and your understanding of where these narratives come from, and just the awareness that sometimes these doubts and difficulties that you have navigating your emotions and expressing love are not entirely rooted in reality, and more than anything are rooted in these complexes that your parents gave you. Shout out to your parents and everyone's parents for teaching you how to hurt the people you love.
Woo, woo. And their parents and their parents and their parents.
Yeah, but everyone's human, so give your parents a hug and a call.
Since we're talking about Venus square Saturn, let's talk about your Saturn retrograde in Aries in the 6th house. Like I mentioned, this is a very controlling father because it's the kind of person that needs to know they're all up in your business every goddamn day. And now your Saturn is retrograde, and since I think that you come from a wealthy family of status, your father probably made, like, okay, Sun in the 1st house already, people are like, you're your father. Oh my God, you look so much like your father. You live in constantly your father's shadow, your father's footsteps. And then to be in the 6th house, even though with it retrograde, he probably wasn't there because he's probably working, because he's probably some kind of fucking, business, Aries fucking 6th house Virgo businessman. All work, no heart, no soul, all image, Sun Scorpio. I'm going to fight whoever I need to get what I want. He probably wasn't around much physically, but one of those people that like he always felt like he was there, and his values got kind of stuck in you, and how he lived his life is kind of how you mimic your everyday life. And it's just very controlling because Virgo 6th house needs things done how they need it. So you probably had to live your life how your dad wanted, but he was never there around to show you how to do it. So that becomes a lot of inner self-discipline because your Saturn is retrograde. So you might be like, my father was so hard on me, my father was so hard on me, but probably pretty soon into your life, he wasn't even there. So those ideas and things that he told you just imprinted on you so early on that now you're so controlling of yourself. You're so careful about what you do every day. And, you know, you probably worry all the time and manifest sicknesses within yourself. Saturn in the 6th house, really, if anything in the 6th house, and just with people in general, but especially Saturn in the 6th house, all of your health issues are a mirror of your issues in real life of yourself and what you're dealing with. So don't ever, especially don't Saturn in Aries it and just be like, this is fine, pretend it's not going to happen, not going to deal with it, because it's just going to get worse and worse. And the thing in your life that is showing you what is going on in your body is just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, Saturn retrograde, a lot of times we say that it speaks to an absence of a fatherly figure. And I think, but you have Saturn so strongly in your chart. So I think it's twofold in a sense that you obviously don't have a connection. Obviously, you likely don't. You likely don't have a very strong connection and sense that your father was there for you in a lot of ways. But I think that what happened is that your father set very high expectations for you, but wasn't there to really teach you how to fulfill those expectations.
The steps necessary.
Yeah, so you're really taking it upon yourself to do your best and beyond your best and give your 110% and overwork yourself in order to fulfill your father's expectations, which is truly impossible. And there's still so much confusion as to how to really fulfill your father's expectations, or even necessarily where exactly they end or what they are, because your Saturn is retrograde. But of course, Saturn is still very strong in your chart, and you have a lot of Saturnian disciplined influence on you. And like we said a billion times, power is a huge thing for you in your chart.
Mm-hmm. Now I don't know if it's your mean Lilith or your true Lilith. I'm kind of confused as to which one I have up right now. But one of your Liliths is in Libra in the 12th house, opposing your Saturn in the 6th house. Having a Saturn opposition in general is just very frustrating, because Saturn feels like that need that you need to fulfill, this thing that you need to conquer your issues, that you're like, one, I will master this. And there's a real concentration, even if you just have one planet in the house that holds your Saturn, it's a very important house to you. So having Saturn opposite your Lilith in the 12th house, it's probably just emphasizes that thing of your dad expects all this stuff in you, yet did not show you how to go about to get it. Because what you do, how you know how to do almost compulsively, is this 12th house Libra escapism, kind of indulging. I feel like, taking baths and enjoying the luxury of being wealthy, because we're just going to keep on going with this wealth thing. And so, you might, your dad was like, you need to be perfect, but then you spent every day, and you spent your free time. You're not a lazy person. You have a lot of shit that you need to do. But I'm saying you spent your free time just in absolute relaxation, luxury, indulging in that Lilith and Libra, likes pretty fancy, expensive things, lots of things, and the 12th house just not doing shit. So this compulsive desire to not do shit meets the Saturn in Aries 6th house, powerhouse workhorse, and they're in opposition. So you're constantly being pulled from which one to do, because you do Lilith so well. Lilith's so easy. You know how to do that. But yet your 6th house is what you need and what your dad's constantly hounding you in your ear. So it can just create like this disharmony, is that the word? And this imbalance in your life of, I think, how to spend your time and how to spend your life day to day. It's hard to feel like after you've had a day to be like, I spent that day how I wanted to spend it. Because you'll always be trying to feel like compromising one for the other, either feeling like you're doing what you need to be doing and what's on your to-do list, or what you actually want to be doing and what actually makes you feel good and scratches that itch, what time is it? Oh, yeah, perfect.
But that's actually the end of your reading.
Okay, well, that was the end of that. Okay, yay! Yeah, perfect time.
So this will be posted publicly, but we're also going to email you the link, as well as what else do we
put testimonials if you feel comfortable writing a little something for our website, or you can just email us back directly to the email that we send this to in response if you have any questions. Don't leave don't leave a comment, because it will 100% get flooded and we won't get the notification.
Yeah.
So make sure if you have any questions or comments to email us
directly.
Mm-hmm. And if you're somebody who's not Aaron and you watch this just out of curiosity or whatever, that's awesome that you watched
all the way to the end.
Thank you.
Good for you.
So hopefully it gave some people a little bit of taste more as to what the advanced reading is like, if they want to purchase it. Now, again, this was an unstructured reading. If you want specific questions to be answered, we do that. Mostly, probably, yeah. But this was just kind of us going how we want to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Erin, so much for your purchase and your patience in receiving this reading.
And letting us post it.
Yes, thank you so much. That's really nice of you. Thanks for reaching out and offering that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Your Leo midheaven really likes you, even though I'm shocked your Scorpio self is wrong.
Right.
But Leo midheaven just won out, won out. That's
what
I was trying to say. Yeah. Anyways, okay. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay.